Hi, everyone. This is Rob Roy, and welcome to the HUBB Financial Crypto Show, where we talk about all things crypto with expert Mr. Brandon Burton. How you doing today, Brandon?
Another beautiful day. We're approaching fast a changing world, the election. We talked about it before the show, right? And I cannot wait till this thing's over. You mentioned it too already. I mean, on the charts, you're like, well, it's going to be do this until the election. Then afterwards, we don't know. It's like we're going to have to sit here and reassess everything, right? so,
That's correct. We really
I,
are. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we are. Well, Rob, I can't wait to see you do a quick chart read on Bitcoin here in a minute, but I want to tell you kind of what's going on, what I'm seeing here as well. And then
Okay.
you can shed some light on what you're seeing on the chart because I'd love to pull that up and kind of look at it side by side. But right now, there's obviously a lot of movement in Bitcoin. We see that thing gaining dominance against other coins. And I can tell you some reasoning behind that. And they're saying that after Donald Trump or whoever wins the election, I kind of like precursors. They said if Donald Trump wins the election, there's going to be that wasn't a Freudian slip. They say
Oh,
if Donald
it
Trump
sounded like
wins the
one, but
election, yeah, if Donald Trump wins the election here, they said that Bitcoin is just going to gain more dominance because there's going to be less of an altcoin season. And I can that rings true just a little bit. And I'll show you why in a second when I look at my charts. But right now, we're at a phase of adoption. And if you look at this chart, my first chart here, this is crypto adoption versus the internet adoption year for year. And right now, it's matching it very closely year for year. Currently, we're about 500 million active users on crypto. And we're about the same spot where internet was back in 2002. The more important metric, I think, is daily active users. And right now in crypto, we're about 15 million daily active users. If you look at the internet right now, there's 5 billion daily active users on the internet. So if we follow this curve, we are so early, but we're following it step for step, year for year. We're keeping up with internet adoption as it started to grow. We're keeping up with it at the same pace. So what all this means is we are so early in crypto. And once we start to reach mass adoption, we can see things like what Michael Saylor's talking about here in this next slide. He thinks Bitcoin is going to account for 7% of global wealth, which you're like, what? There's no way. But once you look back at the internet and how fast it grew and how fast it gained adoption, with crypto growing at the same pace, you're like, yeah, 7% of global wealth. And if it does that, that will put the Bitcoin price at $13 million per Bitcoin here in 21 years. I don't think he's that far off at all because theoretically, if we grow at that pace, then we're going to be at 5 billion crypto users and they're all going to be needing a little bit of Bitcoin. There is a little bit of price shock with Bitcoin right now. You see, oh man, one Bitcoin costs $69,000. We're thinking about repricing Bitcoin in Satoshis. That way, people like Ryan, who wants to buy Bitcoin, doesn't have to fork up $69,000. He looks at the price of Bitcoin and is like, oh, it's 0.0069 cents. I can afford that, you know? So there's a lot of people talking about that in the Bitcoin world. It's like, oh, well, there's going to be a day when we need to reprice Bitcoin in Satoshis, which is the smallest form of Bitcoin you can own, to eliminate that sticker shock. And once people think that, then it's going to move like crazy too.
I had
But
heard
I
that,
don't know if you
Brandon,
saw
and I
this.
sorry to
Have
interrupt.
you heard that?
Sorry to interrupt you. No, sorry to interrupt you because I just think that's a really important point because I'd heard that and actually was a question that I was going to ask you. To me, as a layman, I don't have the pedigree in crypto land that you do, but for just the average human trader, when you hear something like that, it seems like that would be an absolute explosion in Bitcoin if they did reprice it that way. Everybody it seems like would buy it, and I actually don't think that Michael Saylor's comments are that outlandish. I think that's actually doable. I think you made a great reference comparing it to the internet because I remember those days in the beginning of the internet, and I was trading when that was occurring and seeing what was happening and listening to all these people, and everybody was saying, "Oh, you're crazy. There's no way that the internet is going to, do what people were saying it was going to do." And it's taken over our lives, as you said. How many billion users are there every day? So I don't think that's that drastic, but I think you make a very interesting point there. And since you brought it up, what is the likelihood of that occurring, repricing Bitcoin?
I think it's very likely because most of these people that are going to be outpriced in Bitcoin, and it's funny because it's just like it's just basically a visual change. It's nothing technical. Right now, everything is trading Satoshis anyway. But when you go buy Bitcoin, you get a million Satoshis, right? So that's all a Bitcoin is. Everybody's like, well, can you break it down? Because a lot of people have that question. Can you break a Bitcoin down? Yeah, you can go buy 1/10 of a Bitcoin. You can go buy 1/1 millionth of a Bitcoin and you'll own a Satoshi. And everybody's like, oh, well, that's easier, you know? And if we did price it down, everybody would not have that sticker shock of, oh crap, that's way too much. The meme coin craze is crazy. And right now everything has 5 leading zeros or 6 leading zeros into a 643 or whatever it is. And so if Bitcoin were to be priced 0.00069 or whatever it is, everybody's like, well, I can afford less than a penny and then I own a little bit of Bitcoin, right? So it's funny how the psychological mindset it plays with people's heads and stuff. And they're like, well, I could go buy some Bitcoin then versus, oh, 69,000. I missed it. I missed the boat. So there's some gameplay there that's going to happen. And I think it will happen. It will happen. So that's going to be an education thing.
Point. That's the exact point that you make. It's a psychological thing, and I know people that are like, "Oh, I missed it. You know, I missed the whole Bitcoin thing. I can't pay 70,000. We're almost at 70,000 as we're recording this for a Bitcoin." And you bring it down to terms that people can understand, and it changes the psyche dramatically. And I just be really interested to see that happen.
Yeah, it would be. I agree with you. I hope they do. I mean, they're gonna do it, but I just don't know how they're gonna be able to relay that messaging and do that marketing. They're like, oh wait, I don't want to buy Satoshis, I want to buy Bitcoin. But then people are gonna, no, it's the same thing, you know. It's like, anyway, it's like buying a penny instead of a dollar. It's like you buy the penny, you own a piece of a dollar, you own the US dollar, you know, it's like that whole concept. And it's like, yeah, it's just education as people gain awareness and we get that adoption as it happens, that adoption curve starts to exponentialize, then I think we're gonna get there and it's just gonna happen. It's just gonna be a thing. So the other thing that happened this last week, I don't know if you saw this either, but Microsoft, they send out their votes, and I probably have some here from some companies. Yeah, they send out Oh, I think I do. I have one. Remember how I diversified into I diversified into CleanSpark, right? So they sent me their quarterly thing. Apparently, I have to vote on some stuff here, so I'm going to be sending in this vote. Anyway, so it's the same thing as if you diversified. Anyway, so Microsoft, they have their quarterly board review vote or whatever it is. They send it out to all the shareholders. They have to vote on it. But an interesting thing appeared on the ballot here. If you check this out, look at where I circled it. Assessment of investing in Bitcoin. Now, the funny thing is, okay, there's so much to read into this, okay? So this is going to start happening more and more, especially as you see MicroStrategy hitting new all-time highs and absolutely busting through the roof with their Bitcoin standard strategy that they're putting on their balance sheet. Microsoft has a lot of cash, and they're like, well, we need to invest in some things. But the board all voted against this. So this is recommended. When they send this out, they have a recommendation. We recommend you vote against this. But they had to put it on the ballot because it was put forth by a bunch of shareholders and stuff. It was put forth enough to the point where it needed to be on the ballot. Now, this is going to happen more and more with these top companies. You're going to see a lot of boards starting to vote on this. Do we put Bitcoin on our balance sheet? We know Tesla didn't sell any as of their last Q3 report, which absolutely crushed it, by the way. They haven't sold any Bitcoin, which that's great. Now, Microsoft has to send this out, and they recommend voting against it. But I think they're going to use this information. This is some information that's going to come back at them, and they're going to be able to gauge, how many people actually voted yes. Is this something we should reconsider every board meeting and potentially vote for it coming up here? Now, you also might know BlackRock is one of Microsoft's biggest, I think it's their second largest, they're the second largest shareholder. I'm guessing they're going to vote yes on this one, but I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. We don't get the vote back till December 7th or whatever. It's going to be a ways away, but very interesting that we saw this on the ballot here. Now, I think you probably do know this as well, but Bitcoin, holy crap, the ETFs now own almost 1 million Bitcoin as of a few days ago. If you look at this chart here, 1 million Bitcoin, 977,000. This is a couple days ago. Now they've bought way more since then. BlackRock, has they won't stop buying. They believe in what they're talking. They're telling all their clients they believe in the Bitcoin standard and everything. So, I mean, just a lot going on and a lot behind the scenes, Rob. And I kind of wanted to walk through some other stuff here, but I also want to get your take on the chart on Bitcoin, man. So we see, I mean, even if you look at my chart here, Bitcoin is breaking out right now, kind of busting up to that 69K level again. I mean, if you look at this chart, I mean, right now it looks like Batman, I think. I'm a really good TA guy, obviously. Does that not look like Batman? If we're drawing a chart here, does that not look like Batman symbol or whatever it is? Anyway, so that's the Batman symbol, but this thing is really starting to break out here. But the $69,000 level is super important for Bitcoin because that was last bull market's all-time high. And I know with inflation and everything, we still haven't passed it, but we're still hitting it. And it's knocked against this 69K level like 3 or 4 times now. And if it busts through this level, we might see some blue skies here, buddy. What are you seeing on the chart that I don't see?
Well, first of all, the Batman pattern. Thanks for introducing me to a new technical pattern. Wasn't quite aware of the Batman pattern, but I do want to give you kudos for drawing the zigzags on that move up on Bitcoin because that's more my style. Is looking at those zigzags that you drew, and on the chart here, you can see clearly there. I mean, starting from this wave 2 low, there's a zigzag right there. This movement to the upside within this C wave here. This is the one that you had drawn on your chart. That's right there, and it does seem like it wants to break this level. And if you're a believer in this pattern, as I am, then it is going to break that level. And so that gets us up into the 75,000 range. And I agree with you. If we break above that resistance there at 70,000, I don't know that we're stopping there. Off and running, I always use the racing analogy, right? When you're in clean air, the guy out front, his engine always runs the best because he's got clean air. And when you're in the back of the pack, you're dealing with all the exhaust and the little rubber pellets and everything from all the cars in front of you. The engines don't run as well. But once you get into that clean air, there can be no stopping you. And I just think that it could be a rocket ship. No, not to use, I hate using that old meme phrase, but it really could be. And it seems like it wants to make that level. And then if we go back and we draw this larger zigzag, so I kind of did the complex part first, but if you come back here, it also gets us up into the 95,000 range. So I think we break this 70,000 level and then we move higher. And if you take a look at my favorite of all technical indicators, which is the DMI, it is what you would call confirming the strength to the move. It doesn't predict the move, but it's confirming the strength of the move. And so when you look at anytime you're near resistance, I bring that indicator up to see what is the likelihood that we're going to break that resistance area. That's how I use it. And the way it's formed, it seems to confirm that the breakage of that 70,000 level continuing up in this zigzag pattern is likely. We all know nothing's 100% in the world of trading, but from that standpoint, it looks like we want to go higher. And if we hit that level, I have no idea where it stops. You'd probably know more about that than me because now we're getting past the realms of the shorter term technical indicators that I look at, like these zigzag patterns, LA wave, etc. But it looks pretty darn strong right now, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, once we get past that level, we would have to go back and talk about the power law and Bitcoin and how it kind of moves. But right now, we're looking, if we get a Trump win, I think that day, the next day, we're going to see a pretty fat candle all the way up. Probably, it depends where we are before the election, right? So if we're at right here, this would be optimal. If we're right here, we see a candle up to 80,000. If we're already at all-time highs, I say we languish around there and we don't move as much. We don't have as big a wick up. But, it really depends. And it's like you kind of talked about earlier, everybody's sitting on their hands till the election. So even though we're bumping 70K, people are still got maybe one hand on the keyboard, one hand sitting on, it's just not 100% of the movement that it typically would be had we not had the election coming up next week. All eyes are on the election, all eyes. And so we're not doing anything. We're just sitting here kind of watching it. But yeah, we are going to see some movement here.
Well, you're
Oh my
going to
gosh.
be on the
Yeah.
keyboard on election night, I would imagine then, huh? Because it's going to be moving every
Yeah.
time a vote, and it seems like no.
I think we're going to be live over at our platform over at Digital Investor. I think we're going to go ahead and stream part of the election just to see, because I do think there's going to be a lot of Bitcoin movement. And my wife's like, "Oh no, you're going to be up all night." I'm like, "Yeah, maybe." So we're probably going to be streaming a little bit of the election, a little bit of the activity, and a little bit of the price movement of Bitcoin and maybe some of the altcoins, just to see how those things are moving as the votes do come in. Because you nailed it, there's going to be some action, so we don't want to miss that at all. I think it's going to be fun for everybody. So if you haven't already signed up or go over there, by all means, go ahead and go check us out at Digital Investor. We'll put the link in the description so you guys can go ahead and click on that easily to check us out. We stream 5 times a week, and then obviously we cover all this stuff.
Well, I think that live stream against the election is going to be something to watch. I think that'll be a lot of fun to
Yeah,
watch. So I'll be
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I'll be there watching because I'm going to be up all night as well, just because I'm fascinated by the election stuff and all. So I'm always up, but this gives me another reason is to watch what Bitcoin is doing with it. I think it's going to be
Yeah, well,
crazy. So.
oh, it's going to be good times for all, I think. So it's going to be enjoyable, Rob. Oh,
So
I'm
you
a
made
little
a
nervous.
comment that I wanted. Yeah, no, nobody knows, right? I mean, we'll just wait and see. You can't believe any of the polls, and I think everybody just thinks it's a
Nah.
toss up, and we'll see. And will we even find out Tuesday night? Right? Do we even know? People are saying it could be days, even to Saturday, before we actually know who wins. Everybody thinks it's going to be that tight and that close, so we'll see how that plays out. But you made a comment about the more dominant that Bitcoin gets. There's I don't want to put words in your mouth, so if I misunderstood you, let me know. But the more dominant that Bitcoin gets, it's taken away from the altcoins. Is that what? Did I hear you correctly on that?
Yeah. So typically, and if I guess let me pull up a chart, and I don't think Hub has it yet, so I'm going to have to go over to TradingView. But let me pull up a chart right here. This is the Bitcoin dominance chart. Okay, so let's look at this over the last year, and the way that I can draw this and explain this is by looking at this chart. Since the ETFs came in, we're going to call this January right here. Look at this chart. This is the Bitcoin dominance against all the other coins in the crypto market, and it's gone really almost straight up, like a perfect pattern up. Now, typically, what we've seen in the past with Bitcoin dominance is it will go up and then it will fall like this. And then the other coins will kind of go up and take over. And it hasn't done that as much this year. So to see this kind of pattern is very strange, but that's because institutions are coming in, they're buying Bitcoin and nothing else. So BlackRock and all those guys have to buy the Bitcoin, but they're not buying anything else. Now, the reason that I say this will continue if they get a Trump win, and what other people are saying is if we get a Trump win, there's going to be a lot more regulation, and the SEC is going to come in and give us clarification. But that's what we want, which means Bitcoin will be even stronger because they've already given us some clarity on what they believe in Bitcoin. But I think they're going to nuke a lot of the meme coins and a lot of the altcoins that are just absolute garbage. And so a lot of people are going to be more scared to invest in those, and they're going to still continually, steadily invest in Bitcoin. So I think that's why we see less of those pullbacks like we've normally seen in the Bitcoin dominance, and where we see like Ethereum and maybe even Solana, Cardano, and all those things kind of move up. When Bitcoin dominance comes down, I don't know if we're going to see that as much as we have in past cycles.
You'd actually brought it to my attention, and I want to comment on that chart too, because after we went from those more volatile spikes down, that last move up on 45-degree angle is my favorite move, because when you see that move on a chart, the corrections are less severe. So that last move, right where your cursor is, from that point and higher, that's really strong technical, a really strong technical pattern, and I think it plays into. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what you're alluding to is institutions are trending towards Bitcoin and the bigger ones, and it's all the retail guys that are doing those meme coins and the crazy stuff like Dogecoin and all the ridiculous ones that came out, and those will start to fall by the wayside. And you gave the analogy of the internet earlier in this show, and that's what happened in the world of the internet too, right? I mean, everybody came out, they had .com in their name or I something, and they're all trying to get a piece of the pie. And then slowly they all fell away and the big boys won out. And, that's where and it's usually what happens when a new industry comes out. And not that Bitcoin's that new, but that's usually the way things play out, and all the other garbage stuff tends to fall away. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I don't see institutional traders playing in the meme coin area. I just don't. And so it makes a lot of sense. They're gravitating to the big ones. Do you think it's going to be Bitcoin that wins out in the end? That's where we're going to be if we do change and then we're talking down the road and hypotheticals and stuff. But as the dollar continues to become less and less as we spend more and more, and there is going to be some hollering like RFK Jr., et cetera, on having something more standardized for a currency, and something backing a currency like a minimal supply. Is it going to be Bitcoin? Because I've heard talk that there could be some other players that come into the mix.
As far as crypto, no. Bitcoin will. As far as crypto, Bitcoin's it. That's going to be the standard.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're talking against other assets like gold or oil reserves, I think there's always going to be a basket of. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing that is like Bitcoin as far as the digital gold narrative yet. That's not going to be replaced. The other crypto assets are used; they have way different utility. So,
okay. Yeah, you starting to get past my sphere of knowledge there when you start talking about the utilities and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure a basket of Bitcoin and gold and things that are limited in supply is such a bad thing. At least we don't have the ability just to spend crazy like we are now, willy-nilly, and devalue whatever we're using to back the currency.
Yeah, I think you're right. A basket's not a bad. Even though I really believe in Bitcoin, I'm also like a realist. I think a diversified basket would be a lot safer if you're going forward and trying to establish some security and some more strength to your currency or your asset, whatever you're trying to do. A basket's definitely the best way to do it. But I am of the strong belief that Bitcoin needs to be part of that basket. So RFK Jr., I really believe what he's saying, even what Donald Trump partially said, what Senator Lumens in Wyoming's doing. They need to get Bitcoin to help with their balance sheet.
Well, that makes sense. And you showed the chart numerous times of other countries that are doing it as well. So, it seems to be the way of the future. And maybe it's a good intermediate step, too, to have, a basket. Because I think there's still some people that are, not maybe even more old school than me and aren't quite fully on the digital currency bandwagon yet. And if you had a basket with gold and something that's been around forever, it might be an easier sell, to move to having an asset-backed currency. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, you need to open up your. I mean, obviously, you need to expand your. And I get it. I get the mindset. I get the thinking. But once people evolve and start to understand, if they read the book like the Bitcoin Standard, they'll start to understand more and more why Bitcoin is it versus gold, and why it's so much more easier. I mean, just so much more for our technological advancements that we've made. It's so much more pertinent to the way that we do our money now versus gold. We've moved past gold. I mean, it's just we're past that. So Bitcoin is going to take over, and it is going to become a huge asset class going forward. Just like MicroStrategy says, just like Larry Fink says, even ARK investments. I mean, Kathy Wood, she talks about it all the time. It's just, I mean, just think of this fundamental. I mean, how right now for you to move, $100 million worth of gold from this part of the world to the other part of the world versus moving $100 million worth of Bitcoin, right? We're just past it. So we just got to start thinking bigger.
Well, I'm with you, and I'm certainly not arguing your point. I do think that
I know.
but when we talk from when we talk psychology and the amount of baby boomers that we have and the aging baby boomers, there's still a large percentage of them that have no idea what Bitcoin is, but they all know what gold is. So I'm just saying it might be an intermediate step to move to that direction, to have a basket with gold in it as well, as far as a sell to the general public with their lack of knowledge. And I think that there's going to be a good percentage of baby boomers that pass on and never fully understand what digital currency is. But that's how it always is when there's revolutionary ideas that come along and new industrial moves. So I just think this is currencies doing it now finally after we ruined it. Well, they paved the way for Bitcoin when they took the dollar off the gold standard, right? I mean, it set this stage for this. So kudos to those like you that saw it way earlier than I did, because I was one of those guys that didn't pay enough attention to it in the early days, and a little bit late to the party. I just think there's other people that are even slower than I am out there. But I do think you're right, and I do think that's where things are going to go, and I think that's where it's going to end up. And perhaps if Trump wins, that whole process gets accelerated because he seems to really be committed to it. I don't think it's just talking points for votes. I think he's become a believer. I think he's gotten enough education and talked to enough Bitcoin people that now he's a full-on believer. I believe that.
Yeah, I think so as well. I just want to iterate, man, and we're still early. We're still so early, Rob. I mean, look at the adoption chart that I showed at the start here. We're still like the early days of the internet. We still have a 20x in us at the minimum. So don't you worry about being too late, ever.
Okay.
You're good to go. You're in the mix, man.
All right. Glad to hear that, my friends.
Anyway, yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we're good. I think next week. Yeah, all eyes on the election. I think next week we'll talk about some stuff. I mean, we'll still be pre-election, I think, on Monday. The election's Tuesday. Anyway, so we'll be pre-election still, but next week maybe I'll go over some specifics on one of the tokens that we've dove deep into over at Digital Investor. I think that might be kind of a cool little walkthrough.
All right. Sounds good. Give us something to talk about other than just the election next Monday as well, too.
Yeah,
so look forward to hearing about that. All right, Brandon, thanks as always. Always appreciate your time. Always appreciate your insights. And we've got an interesting, 8 days in front of us. And then we'll have a lot more to talk about the following week. My goodness, that'll be a wild show.
Yeah, I think so. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'll be watching with you on election night. So, but we'll talk about that again next week before the election. So, thanks as always, and let's see if we can bust that 70,000 before it could happen.
Yeah, we'll see.